very much. And a big thank you to both the Atlantic Council and to DFR Labs, our good colleagues and long-time partners for the Alliance in organizing various events, but also actually in this work stream that we are discussing these last 2 days. I am grateful for the opportunity to join you all today, both here in person, but also online. And indeed, these 2 days in person, and for the 5th time, the Open Summit has brought together policymakers, civil society, journalists, industry, and indeed it's meant to address today's critical challenges, countering foreign interference, building resilience, but also sharing knowledge, talking to each other, sharing experience, and finding the best solutions for the problems we identify. As for many of us, or we could say for all, also NATO is faced with a changed and evolving security environment. NATO's mission is to prevent war, to protect our nations, our people, and our values. We do it through strong deterrence and, if necessary, defense. This has been our mission and our privilege for more than 70 years. Information for NATO is an instrument of power. It lies across both civilian and military spheres. What it does, it helps us to implement our main tasks, to deter, if necessary, to defend, to prevent and manage crises, and to work with the partners across the globe. I want to say also that looking ahead in these times, regardless of how Ukraine wins its war of liberation, we are faced with a new reality. The digital and information space for us at NATO is the most contested environment. Continuous activity, short of armed conflict, has become the norm, with threat actors trying to weaken our democratic institutions, influence diplomatic outcomes, and also trying to obtain relative security advantages against the alliance. Information threats are only partially visible and largely non-kinetic, combining military and non-military tools and blurring the lines between peace, crisis, and conflict. What it means for us at NATO is that the center of gravity, which is our unity, is affected. Because if it is more difficult to identify the threat, it's more difficult to take the decisions. That is why, since 2014, NATO has undergone some of the most significant and deep reforms, both in terms of intelligence gathering, forming joint threat picture, but also in the information field, to both improve the understand function, but also to engage. The war in Ukraine has demonstrated that the information environment is a primary area for competition, and we have heard that over the last 2 days quite a lot. It was used as an enabler, shaping the battle space for war, and in the years and weeks preceding the invasion, the Kremlin was priming audiences with narratives, whether genocide, mercenaries, provocations with chemical components. It was all to pave the way for the invasion and false flag operations. While the success of these efforts is debatable, there are real implications for how we prepare for the future. And as I said, we at NATO adapt constantly. We did our lessons learned from 2014, and we will do them as we speak now. And that is what we all have to do nationally in our organizations, be it in industry, be it in NGOs, be it in academia, elsewhere. And only then we can reach that systemic solution of answer or preventive actions that we discussed in the previous panel. So first, we must leverage the potential of open source intelligence. Bellingcat and others until 2014 were one of the first initiatives in this space. Today, the open source community, and many of you are here, has flourished. We see countless more civil society groups assuming the front lines of defending our information environment, exposing hostile information activities, and bringing accountability and validation to a heavily polluted information environment. We need more of this. The war in Ukraine has demonstrated the important roles that the open source intelligence community has played in investigating, verifying, validating, and preserving developments on the ground. And often in public communications, these experts are trusted and relied upon more than official sources from governments or from those who are communicating about it. Second, we must harness the power of technology and innovation. We, in the political West, or wider global partnership, we have a unique advantage. Our companies and universities operate in free and open societies. Our most creative and innovative minds are able to express themselves freely. They are inspired to challenge, to think, to invent, and to do that in radical new directions without a threat of reprisals. By bringing together academia, startups, governments, we can design cutting-edge solutions to address the security challenges that we face. This includes developing capabilities and tools to better detect, analyze, and respond to information threats. And we know from those who have been involved, who have taken active part in debunking or in research or in other parts of this work, they are not gonna spread disinformation. As more we have at all age groups, at all societal groups involved, as best off we are as society. Third, we need to defend our values in the digital world. And it seems strange for NATO to speak about values, but that is what NATO's mission is. It is actually in the Washington Treaty. That's why the alliance was established, to defend the freedom and liberty. We have seen how authoritarian states have exploited digital platforms and tools for their own strategic gains, undermining democracy, freedom, and rules-based international order. We must continue supporting the development of appropriate national multilateral solutions that help us preserve these values that we hold dear. Progress has been made, from sanctions to regulatory measures to platform policies, but we need to do more. And we need to do more also in the private sector. A few words on further steps how we at NATO are adapting and addressing these new challenges. First, situational awareness and the function that is relatively new, as I said, to understand these new non-traditional threats. Primarily, our mission is to look at those that are targeted at these threats, targeted at the alliance, at allies. It's vital to enable a credible response. We use information environment assessments routinely to support discussions among allies and to provide senior NATO leadership with actionable insights and suggestions for decision-making. That concerns both the civilian and military sides of the House. We are investing in our own effort to create an IA that is there for the NATO as the alliance, for the allies and for the commands and civilian leadership. We have prioritized technology and innovation. We have some of the most advanced technologies in the world, and we are taking steps to continually push further. We have just launched a DIANA, or Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic, to identify and develop the next generation of technologies. It is vital that the open democratic nations of the world work together to ensure that the values remain at the heart of the technological future. This is how we will not only maintain our technological edge, but also shape the future, the new rules and norms of global technology. Also, building resilience against threats is critical. So not only understanding the threat and having a joint understanding across the 30 allies, but also recognizing the fact that the governments alone are not able to address it. So allies have recognized that we need to make our societies stronger, to make our infrastructure more resilient and our supply chains more secure. That's why we will establish clear and more measurable alliance-wide resilience objectives to ensure a shared resilience among the allies. And of course, to keep our people safe, we need a strong military. And we also need strong societies. That's why we work so closely with partners such as EU, such as global partners in Asia-Pacific, such as in private sector, in non-governmental sector, all across the board to make sure that there is this whole society approach. NATO is also a unique platform where we exchange views and insights, share information, have open and frank discussions, and we coordinate action. With the Alliances Network, we bring together the entire Euro-Atlantic community. That helps us to develop common standards. It helps us to act. By bringing together the military and non-military, we address both the traditional threats and the new. Looking to the future, the information space will be at the core of strategic competition and conflict. This shared challenge requires our collective resolve, and we at NATO are doing our part. In an information environment that is always on, so too must be our efforts to engage. NATO wants to work with you. You are experts in civil society, industry, academia. The threats in information environment, in particular hostile information operations, disinformation, require embedded local communities that understand these nuances and unique details of specific threats. So we welcome further collaboration with all of you who are engaged at the local levels. We are also very eager to work more with social media platforms and with various operators, innovators, the ones that can be on or that are on the front lines of countering disinformation. As we look forward to the summit in Madrid in a few weeks' time, we must keep in mind that no one has full visibility of all threats. That is why we must join forces. We are stronger, more resilient, and more secure together. And in conclusion, a few more reflections from me personally. We indeed, as NATO, are a political military alliance, a defensive alliance. And our purpose is to safeguard and defend the freedom and liberty of our people. Our military leaders always remind us to defend is to know what we are fighting for. What is that liberty and freedoms that we are fighting for? And I am reminded in this regard of Sir Isaiah Berlin's two concepts of liberty. He's a British philosopher born in Riga, Latvia, who was one of the leading philosophers of liberalism. And he said, we have two types of liberties. One is negative, and that is the freedom and liberty from coercion. That is a concept of our inalienable rights. However, even in dictatorships, an individual can find freedom. If they extinguish the desire of freedom, even individuals in prisons can still retreat into their inner citadel of mind, which cannot be conquered, and that is a liberty from fear. So when we think back of Mandela, or when we think today of Navalny, Karamurza, or others, it gives us hope that even the most authoritarian regimes cannot and will not conquer the people. On the positive liberty, as Berlin said, it is the need to fulfill one's potential. That is why we are here. To be our own masters, to decide for ourselves. That's why the alliance was established. That's why we take collective action. It also can lead to huge changes and revolutions or anarchies. So the free societies like ours depend on the balance between these two liberties, the negative and the positive. And here, what Berlin said was, human goals are many, and they are in perpetual rivalry with each other. So we need to remember that it is the pluralism of our values that matters. Thus, for us as a defense alliance, for our citizens, for all of us here and online, it is important to know that appreciating liberty in the different forms, we are defending our way of life, our civilization, our societies, and that is what it is worth fighting for. That is our biggest mission together with you, and we stand together as allies protecting 1 billion people across Europe and North America, and it is up to us to play our part in maintaining security and building a better, safer world for future generations. We are NATO. We are stronger together, and we are in this together. Thank you.